Bartenders of Reddit, what is your best way too drunk customer story?
I had two drunks sitting at the bar, completely hammered. They came in together and were obviously acquaintances, but got into a heated disagreement. Suddenly, one lurches to his feet and, quite nimbly, grabbed his bar stool and swung up back to hit the other one, like an executioner with a sword. None of us moved because he did it so quick and it looked like it would all be over in an instant, but he froze, held his pose for a couple of long seconds, then just toppled over backwards. There was a collective sigh of relief from everyone, but the victim, who was also passed out, face down on the bar.
I worked at a local bar, and two regulars came in really drunk and stoned. They ordered beers and just stared into the mirror on the back of the bar. Finally, one of the guys, expressionless, takes his bottle and taps his buddies with it, making it foam all over the bar. The other guy looks down at the beer going everywhere, and just as expressionless, slams his bottle as hard as he can down on the first guy's beer. Glass shatters all down the bar. About 20 people are hit with glass. It goes into my ice chest as well, which became the biggest issue. They look up at me, still expressionless. I say, "You know you gotta go now." They nod and walk out.
Worked in wedding hall. We had this one small reception with 50 invited, most of them French Canadians. This is an Italian wedding hall in Quebec, and everyone was having a lot of fun and getting plastered. Except for this guy with a tiny mustache. He's just drinking straight whiskey, glass after glass, and he's not looking like he's having any fun. He's just at the bar, drinking alone, not talking to anyone. So, as I serve him a last drink, telling him that I'm cutting him off, after just as the groom approaches my bar, tiny mustache guy chugs the whiskey, turns around and yells at the groom, "It should have been me!" Then punches him straight on the chin with all his drunken guy momentum. I had a hard time trying to explain security what had happened over the radio. The cook where I used to work had a sports bottle full of wine all the time. We would put the outdated wine in a bin, and he would take the bin out every day. So he had an endless supply of 3 to 4 Daltons, wild wine. This stuff is pretty yummy, really. The oxidation adds a nice complexity to the wine. Anyways, I gave him a ride home most days due to him not being able to drive. One day, I could not find him anywhere, so I sat down at the bar for dinner and 1 to 2 beers. I figured that he would show up before too long. He did not, so I guessed that he had got a ride home and headed out. Walking up to my truck, I saw something under it and realized that it was the missing cook. He was sleeping between the back and front wheels on the passenger side. If I had not seen him under the truck, he would have been ran over. I am pretty sure starting the truck would have not woke him by how difficult it was to get him to wake up and get into the truck. I was coming in on the night shift on a Friday afternoon, 5 p.m. One of the first things I see is a customer sitting at a corner bar seat with a cowboy hat worn low, covering his eyes. He was already cut off and was waiting for a cab that was called for him. This was good, as I thought I wouldn't have to deal with him. Well, 5 minutes after I start my shift, he starts muttering loudly weird stuff like "fucking Jerome" or "God damn it." I was just hoping for the cab to get there soon. After 10 minutes, he decided to scream at the top of his lungs in a high-pitched voice, "Nigger!" There was music playing, but everybody just gave a death glare over to the guy. Now me, I covered up my face with my shirt and walked into the back so nobody would see me laughing. I walked right back out and escorted him out of the bar and sat him against a wall until the cab arrived. Not a bartender, but between school and university. Spent 6 months in Banff, AB, working as a sandwich artist? Yes, you read that correctly. That was our actual title, in Subway. One evening, club turnout time around 2:30 to 3 a.m. Drunk guy enters with his girlfriend. Now this guy is out of his mind drunk and proceeds to lock himself in the customer toilet. Girl freaks out and I proceed to unlock the door with a quarter. Open the door to find this guy unconscious on the toilet, trousers round his ankles, vom all over himself and the floor around him, with his John Thomas on show for the whole queue to see, much to their amusement. Anyway, girl goes in and shuts the door behind her. 10 to 15 minutes later comes out helping her boyfriend, who is now just about managing to put one foot in front of the other, slams a $100 bill down on the counter and leaves without saying, ordering anything. When I worked as a waiter for a high-priced country club, one customer after about 24 vodka tonics asked my manager to get him to Long Beach Airport because he wanted to go Vegas. Long story short, my manger told me to drive him to Long Beach, 45 minutes drive, in his car, and he ordered a private plane. On the ride there, I kept asking him, "Are you sure you want to do this?" He came back and said, "Bro, what do you think I am? A pussy why?" Long story short, the guy I guess stayed up all night in Vegas and gambled away $3.2 million after spending the $29,000 on a private plane. The next morning, he had no idea how he got to Vegas and frantically called the country club to ask what the happened.
I was working in a restaurant when I was 15, and I had to go behind the bar to get a jug of water for one of the customers. It was only 3 o'clock during the day, so there was barely anyone about the bar end of the restaurant except for 3 men, roughly in their 60s. So, being a typical, shy 15-year-old girl, I kept my head down as I could tell they were completely hammered. However, they took this opportunity of seeing a female there to start hitting on me, winking and offering to buy me drinks. I mean, I was 15. After I said no, completely embarrassed, one of them told me I was missing out, burst out laughing, and then proceeded to fall off his chair. I was bartending for a while in a pretty quiet, Irish-themed pub that never got very crowded. We ran a game of bar poker, and my boyfriend at the time would often come in and play during my shifts. One night, this young Southern guy came in and was doing shots of Jameson and trying to flirt with me. He got pretty blasted, and then found out that the guy sitting to his left was my boyfriend, threw his chips across the table saying, "Are you fucking kidding me? Why am I even here?" and tried to leave without paying. I mentioned to him that he needed to pay, and when he signed the receipt, he left me his phone number saying that if I wanted the tip, I could come get it from him later.
One night, my bouncer had to kindly ask the guy to not finger blast his female acquaintance at the bar. The guy took offense and decided to take this classy lady elsewhere, which was fine, but before he walked away, he went to high-five the other bartender who was unaware of the previous whereabouts of the guy's hand. Everything started happening in slow motion. No. Me and the bouncer yelled as his hand made contact with the bartender's. She shoots me a confused look as I pantomime diddling a girl's fun parts and mouth the words, "He was finger blasting her." The reaction was pretty priceless. I used to work at a bar on a lake, and people would come out and spend the entire day on their yachts and then come back to my bar in the evening and get even more drunk. Most of them were regulars, so I knew they would just be going to sleep on their yachts and wouldn't be driving. One day, this guy who was new to the pier got so drunk that he tried to pay his $100 tab with his insurance card. I had to argue with him for 5 minutes, I kid you not, before finally, his wife intervened and told him that it wasn't his credit card. The guy ended up falling in the lake that night. I was silently satisfied. Not a bartender, but work in nightclubs anyways, blackjack dealer. This happened a couple of years ago. A couple comes to the table to play some blackjack. They play for a while and seem to have fun and be quite in love. The girl runs out of chips and asks the guy to give him some change so he can gather a round sum from what cash she has left. Cards didn't work back then. Guy tosses her his wallet and says, "Look from there, got a ton of coins." She opens the coin section of the wallet and digs out a couple of coins and a golden ring. She stares at the ring with disbelief and reads the carving, then yells to the guy, "What the F? At number? You are married?"
I had a regular who was a midget. He would always order 7 and 7 talls, which I found hysterical. He was obnoxious and pretentious, and if his steak was cooked properly, he would wave a $20 in the air and loudly proclaim he wanted to tip the cook. One night he got really drunk and began proclaiming, "I may be a little guy, but I got the biggest dick in here." I told him to shut up, and he began laughing so hard he fell off the stool. A much longer drop when you are 3 feet tall. In the end, I wound up carrying him like a baby. I was a 27-year-old girl carrying a midget. It was one of the best nights of my life.
Not so much a drunk story, but my most memorable. I used to bartend in a very seedy dive bar, and the owner got tired of people doing drugs in our bathroom, specifically coke on the tanks of the toilets. So he ended up putting WD-40 on all the surfaces that might possibly have enough room to lay out a line of coke. It only took one night before these 2 really drunk prostitutes come stumbling out of the bathroom covered in blood from massive nosebleeds. They were stumbling and pissed, slinging blood everywhere and grabbing everything that wasn't nailed and threw it across the bar as they left. I miss that job sometimes. Thank you for watching. Check out other videos.